Welcome to the Pacific Perspectives Podcast, episode 27. JC's not here right now. He's got school to do. I mean, we've all got school to do, but he's being a pussy about it. So today we're joined by Peter, who was on the last episode, and Rory, who is a recurring guest here. Thank you very much.
I still haven't been paid.
I still haven't been paid. Are you kidding me? I've done 27 of these. All right. So last night, we'll just get started right off the rip. Not last night, but last morning, I actually didn't see it because I was being a good boy in church. Alex Ovechkin breaks the goal record, 895, from Gretzky's 894. I feel like it's kind of been talked about to death already at this point, and it's not even been like 24 hours. But do we really think that is this record going to stay? Because I mean, I don't know. There's Matthews. Matthews kind of has the math with it, but he has to. What do you think?
Yeah,
it'll stay. I don't think Matthews is gonna break it. I just don't think he's gonna stay healthy enough. It's the fact with Matthews that he does tend to miss, 10, 20 games in a season. I saw a stat today on Twitter somewhere. I forget who posted it, but I'm pretty sure Ovi's missed 72 games across his entire career, and obviously it was made a pretty big deal that his broken leg this year, 60 games out, was his longest absence ever. Mm-hmm. Matthews has already missed 71 games in his career, so he's already missed the same amount of time as Ovechkin has in this is his 9th season, I think.
Yeah,
something like that.
So. I can't see a world where Matthews stays healthy enough. I think there's a chance Matthews gets 750, 800 and gets really close, but I don't know if he quite gets because Ovi's not going to finish with 895. He's gonna push to as close to 950 as possible. You'd think. So,
Peter, you had something to say?
No, it was going to be what Roy pretty much said. It's just the whole entire idea of longevity and injuries. It's just I don't know if he'll be able to actually play healthy enough. He definitely has the talent. He 100% has the talent. He's just not going to play enough games to actually do it. And it's also a matter of he'll actually be as good as Ovechkin is as late as he is in his career. Ovechkin is fucking putting up close to 50 goals while he's damn near 40, and it's just a question of if Matthews could actually do that himself, which I don't know if he will be able to, honestly. I don't know, maybe, probably, but I don't.
Yeah.
It's all about longevity and fucking injuries. I don't think he'll actually be able to reach 895.
It's a cliche. The best ability is availability.
Yeah.
But the NHL showed that post where it was where current players, how long they'd have to play at their current pace to break Ovi's record. First of all, I mean, all those guys are mid to late 20s, so they're gonna have a fall off, just like Ovi did to some extent at some point in his career. So that's not happening. But yeah, it's a combination of him genuinely being a top 5, top 3 goal scorer of all time, just in terms of ability, and being ridiculously sturdy. He's never gets injured. It's insane. Yeah. I'd say if we're talking, I mean, in order to imagine a guy breaking the record, you kind of have to reach into serious hypotheticals. For me, it would be if McDavid decided he was a goal scorer, because we saw it that one year when he got 150 points. He also got almost 70 goals just because he wanted to. I feel like if he did that his whole career, he probably could consistently be a 60 goal guy. But Matthews is really the only guy that really comes to mind, but he just can't stay healthy. So
yeah,
I don't know. The early career stuff with Ovi, you can definitely see someone getting consistent 50, 60 goal campaigns over again, but nobody's ever going to do that. Not in today's day and age.
Yeah, people don't come into the league the way Ovi did too. Ovi's rookie year was 50 goals over 100 points.
Some bullshit
players don't do that anymore. I think the quality of the NHL has raised itself higher than the quality of other leagues around the world in the past couple decades. Just on the basis of talent dispersal and whatever. It's harder to jump into the league right away and be a superstar, top 50, top 25 player. right off the hop. Like you usually see guys have to take a year or two. Even like maybe Bedard's not the best example because he hasn't lived up to whatever expectations people had. But he had what, like a 70 odd point rookie year, and then now he's on pace for like 60 in his second year.
He already
Like,
hit 60. Yeah.
Yeah, has he? Well, on pace for like 65.
Yeah, yeah, they'd be like 63, 65, something like that.
Yeah, so not. So yeah, like I think it's hard. I think it would. I think it's either Matthews, figuring out how to stay healthy and adapt his game to become more durable and gaining his longevity, like Peter was talking about, and playing another 10 seasons, averaging 45 goals a year or however much he needs, or it would be the NHL's landscape shifting again. The rest of the world kind of getting better and kind of gaining some level of market share from the NHL, and then some superstar prospect comes in and can score 50 goals for his entire career on average for 18 years or whatever it really is. It's such an impossible feat to even think about. And like you look at some people bringing up like the old receipts from 10, 15 years ago, saying like, oh, Ovi's never going to hit it. He's gonna have to average 50 for like the rest of his career. Honestly, the same conversations we're having right now, which would be funny if Matthews does end up doing it, but it's just it's so hard. It's one of those things that it feels like a once in 2 or 3 generations thing more than just once in a generation.
Low key. What do you think about Michkov?
Nah,
no.
He can score. I don't think he's gonna
up to like that degree.
Yeah, he could score 50 goals a year a few times, but I don't know. I don't think I think he maxes out at like 600 if everything goes right for him.
Yeah, I was just throwing that out there.
Yeah, you're an idiot, Peter. Get out of here. Disgusting. Never say anything about that again.
All right, my bad.
Sleeper pick. Maybe I'm Homer. Leon Draisaitl, just because I think he's very durable, and well, first of all, like he never gets injured.
Other than the 3 injuries this year.
Yeah, except for this year. I think before this year, he had missed like 10 games across his career.
He had like 4 full seasons.
Yeah, like he was kind of ridiculous. And across that time, he's been a consistent 50 goal scorer. First of all, I think because it took him a little bit to get going, being a superstar in his career, it's not happening. Like, I'll just be realistic. Yeah. I think probably 650 is probably his peak, where he ends up. But like, if he does have a style of play that would absolutely hold up in his like mid-late 30s, I feel like.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. Like he's not relying on skating or anything.
Yeah, exactly. So I think he's got a good chance out of anybody left, just considering priors and assuming Matthews continues to miss time like that.
I don't know. I think Matthews is the best. It's like with Draisaitl, like he's 29 years old right now, and he's at 399 career goals.
Yeah,
that's just under just under 500 away from Ovechkin. He'd have to hit, assuming Ovechkin finishes on say 930, because he plays the rest of this year and next season, then goes back to the KHL, so it's like 35 goals next year or whatever.
Yeah.
So assuming Ovi finishes around 950, like Draisaitl would have to score 50 goals a year for the next like what's that, like 9 seasons or whatever? Because it would be 450, 500, 550, 600, 650, 700, 750, 800. 850, 900, 11 years.
Live calculations.
He would have to average 50 goals. That's how far Draisaitl is away. And this is a guy who scored, 52 and 71 this year. He scored, 52 2 years ago, 55 3 years ago, 50 in 2018-19. That is the level of consistency you have to get. He has to score 50 goals on average a year for the next 11 seasons to have a decent chance, or not to have, or to be able to. That would get him to 950, I guess. So it would be a little bit more, but
You know who would have been able to get close if he actually stayed healthy?
Talking Stamkos?
Kaprizov.
He came into the league 40-goal scorer. Even though it was kind of late, he still came in. I'm pretty sure it was like probably like 45 goal pace at like 22, 23.
I think he came in older than you're thinking, though.
I'm pretty sure it was 23.
He's 27 right now.
So yeah, 23.
Yeah.
Yeah, he came over when he was like, I think it was, 23, 24. But still, that's
But even
missing
then,
out on 5 years that Ovechkin
Yeah, I
had.
know. That's
Yeah.
what's like sucks.
Like, that's
Like,
an
that's what I'm saying.
automatic
Like, definitely.
200 goals that he misses
Yeah,
out
I
on.
know. That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying. He definitely
it's
could have gotten
tough.
close if he wasn't always injured too.
Like it has to be the guy that comes in at 18 or
8,
19
19, yeah.
and just like legitimately is a healthy 40 to 50 goal guy at least for like their entire career. Like basically what Ovi is.
Yeah.
And Ovi is
Yeah.
a, you know, once, like he's a one of one player. Like there's never been a single NHL player like Ovi.
That's
So,
why Matthews is just so disappointing here because he did that. He came in at
Yeah.
18
yeah,
and
he
he
came to score
scored.
40 in his rookie year.
Yeah, and he just kept building on that, and he did
Yeah.
kind of falter earlier because it was like, oh, he can score 60 goals, but he never scored 50, and then he did it, and then he won a Hart and did all that stuff. If he, like just the injuries, if he was healthy, I would say I guarantee Matthew does it, but that's a very
if he played
big
82
if.
games, if he played 82 games for his entire career, he would probably do it. But here's the crazy thing, and like we said, he has missed injuries. Like he averages missing between like 10 to 20 games a season, give or take. He's only had 2 seasons, and one was his rookie year where he's played 80 or more games. He's only ever had two seasons where he's hit 50 goals. He's had other seasons where he's been on pace. Obviously, you think of 20 like the COVID shortened year of 2021 where he had 41 and 52, which is ridiculous. But he has only hit 50 goals twice, and that was 60 goals in 21-22 and then 69 last season, which is obviously ridiculous. So Matthews has the potential to get up to those numbers, and those numbers that even Ovi never reached. Like Ovi got 65 once, and otherwise has never hit 60.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just the consistency of staying healthy and playing a full year healthy, and even other years where like he'll get hurt and he'll play through an injury, like this year, and he's only got like 30 goals now in 61 games, which is 95% of NHL players will take that season every single time. But
Yeah.
you can't have very many of those seasons if you're going to win.
Yeah.
Well, we'll probably cut the Ovi talk here, but one last thing I wanted to mention was a lot of teams don't do this anymore, where they have a guy on the power play, and Ovi, like even Matthews is not the shooter on Toronto's power play, which has been kind of meh for most of his time there. But Ovi's been the guy on the Caps' great power play for 2 decades. Like, not saying he's like a power play merchant or anything. Like he is obviously one of the best shooters ever, but just being that guy forever and just being expected to score that much always. I think that's one of the most important contributors.
He never really
there.
had to share the wealth. He was
never.
always he was always the number one guy.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the teams were built for him to score. Like even like Backstrom was legitimately like made in a lab to feed passes to Ovi, the same way like the same way Adams was for Brett Hull. Like those guys were just made playmakers to just feed it to like their guy in the slot or in his office and just goal and just one timer goal every time. Like even like Matthews isn't quite that type of player. He has the one timer, but like he's a wrist shot goal kind of guy. And there's a reason why he's always like Matthews has more like even strength or 5-on-5 goals than Ovi ever did, in a single season. And like because Ovi would score 25 a year on the power play from the same spot every time, and you couldn't stop him.
Yep. It was really just a perfect combination of everything. I don't think you can't just get the record just by being a great shooter. You got to have the support and the health, right? So yeah, that makes sense. All right, on the next topic, Peter, you can fight me on this. But with the Oilers, these last few games, who cares? That's whatever. They're kind of just resting McDavid, Draisaitl at home. Honestly, it does feel like half the team has been injured for a long time now. But they're not getting home ice against LA. And it will be LA and Oilers after Vegas took that one from the Flames last night. I don't think LA is going to catch them for the division. I'm still, this could go very wrong, but I'm not scared of the Kings one bit. Not at all. I think it's done in 6. I think it's done in 6
I
at the
do
most.
have an interjection here. I have a special message from Nux Memes himself.
Oh, the
Jason.
man.
The man. Dear Pacific Perspectives podcast listeners, it is with great regret that I missed this recording today. I must abstain due to my schooling efforts, and also because Mimamoto stole my post and I don't want to talk to him for an hour today.
Oh.
To all the loyal Canucks fans who listen, here's what I will say. This team is shit. That's all I have to say on that matter. However, we do at least have a bright, sparkling glimmer of hope in Andrei Kuzmenko. We as Canucks fans can live vicariously in the playoffs through the Kuzmeister as he fucks up the repulsive Edmonton Oilers. Oh, you aren't scared of LA, Xavier? Your goalie is Stuart Skinner. Fuck you. Go steal another post. Okay, That's it. Have fun listening to Not Me for a week. Cordially, Nux Memes.
Every hotel room got the Canucks chair.
How did he call it?
How did he know? Oh, well, actually, it was in the notes. It was in the notes that I shared. That's why. No. He's not slick. He's not that. No. He's not. Okay. I thought it was magic for a moment. Yeah, that's insane. Cheering for one player against one team just to defeat your rival. You got. I mean, come on.
It is the Kuzmeister, though.
It's cuck activities. It's cuck activities. I'm sorry, Canucks fans. Which you're not getting a segment. You're not getting a segment on today's podcast. Turn it off. We just lost. We just lost 60% of our viewers. If a radio host said like turn it off, the producer walks in and is like, dude, you're fired. Okay. But with the Oilers, here's the biggest thing for me. The Kings power play, I did not even realize this. They're like 27th. It's awful. It's bad. And in years previous, this home thing with the Kings is not entirely new. They've always had a great home record. But the Oilers are 6-2 in LA in those series. We destroyed them in LA last year. The first year, I think we kind of struggled with it. They had that one blowout in Game 4, and then we did come back and beat them in Game 6. It was a great one. But the home crowd kind of sucks. It's LA. That game against the Oilers, and I know it was a matinee, they could not fill the seats. It was technically 100% because they sold all the seats, but like people are jogging on the beach or something. I don't know. They're not watching LA hockey. It's just they just have no aura. You know, they have no.
I don't know.
They have no aura. They just. I have a feeling it'll be one of those things where they're a genuinely good team, and again, they're literally one of the best teams in the West. I think I would pick them over most teams. They just do not match up with the Oilers at all. And it's becoming a mental thing last year especially. You could tell once they got down, it was over. Once they had... I don't think there was one moment where the Kings... Well, I mean, obviously they've lost in 5. It's probably not going to happen. But there was never a moment where once the Oilers had gotten up, they seriously pushed. They just didn't happen. It's a mental block thing.
I know what you mean, but I wonder if it's different this year. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, I mean, I was going to say the same exact thing. I feel like it's a lot different this year just because of how different the team performed this season.
But did they perform differently this season?
I mean, yeah, they're going to get home ice.
Outside of the home ice thing, which I think is why I'm picking it to go to 6 and not be a sweep. There's nothing different. They've had an elite goalie performance last year from Talbot, although he kind of faltered towards the end. And I will say they really did not have the momentum going into playoffs last year. That's probably why they went down so early. And they just completely whimpered out of the spot. Really the only game they got in Game 2, which I had the displeasure of that being the only game I showed up for that series and watched in person. Skinner basically gave them that game. I think they had 20 shots and it was 2 Doughty breakaway. It was bad. But I'm going to expect them to have a better performance than last year. But still, it's just... Nothing about them scares me at all. Their superstars are just meh.
Okay. I'm not saying that I'm 100% picking LA over Edmonton right now, but I think it's a better LA team. I think
Yeah.
I think the pieces fit together a little better this year, even if they are like most of the same pieces. Like we know what Kempe can do in the playoffs. You know, he's scored big goals in the past. You know, I think Byfield's a little bit more of a mature player off the puck now. And obviously, like his scoring comes and goes a little bit, and it's come in the second half of the year for sure. But I think he'll handle it better. Like Kopitar is still Kopitar.
Yeah.
You know, Fiala is probably the biggest wild card, but I do think he's a good player, and you know, like their depth can hang, and that's probably the difference in Edmonton this year versus you know the last couple. Like Edmonton's depth is not as good as it was last year. Last year for sure. That's probably where the series is won and lost a little bit more. Like, you know, McDavid and Draisaitl are going to do their thing. They're going to have X amount of points in however many games the series goes, and you know the power play will come alive in the playoffs like it always does for Edmonton. But I think down the lineup, LA will hold on better this year, and maybe you won't get into these spots where they're down early in games and they have to push. And it was a little bit of a problem with their playing style in past years, where they're a little bit. I don't say they're more open now, but they're not quite the same like 1-3-1 every single game, no matter what. And then you know you go down to a team that can score on the power play, and like you just don't have the horses to get yourself back in. I think they're a little bit more well-rounded in the way they play, and that they can actually like take the game to a team. They can actually, you know, come back in a game where they like go down a couple goals. Obviously, like you say that they got good goaltending from Can Talbot last year, but he's not played close to the level that Darcy Kemper's been at lately.
No.
So I think it's a better overall team. I don't know if I'd pick LA. Like it's not something I've you know gotten around to. Like I don't really make those decisions until you know the playoff brackets are out and I'm going through it. But I think it'll be closer to how it was like in the first time these teams met, where like Edmonton had to fight and you needed heroic performances from you know McDavid in particular to actually win the series.
I think I can probably agree with that. It'll definitely feel. I mean, there won't be nearly as many like blowouts and just not even close performances as there was last year, where it really felt like that was kind of it for the Kings. And they've been kind of revitalized through that Dubois Kemper trade. It's looking like a masterpiece for both teams. But it comes down to the special teams for me, and it's kind of looking like they're going to go with Pickard for the game one starter, which if you told me that last year, it would have, like 2 years ago, that would have, everyone in the league is like, huh? Calvin Pickard is starting game one of the playoffs. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's kind of looking that way. Not only with Skinner's health, but just the fact that Pickard has genuinely been a better goalie at every single avenue this year.
That's really fucking bad.
Yeah. No, that's
kind of bad.
And the thing is, I would be scared of that. I'm scared of the goaltending against like basically any of the teams. But Skinner has had a .898 over the course of the 3 playoff series. Mike Smith had a .891 against the Kings in the first year. So clearly goaltending does not matter for the Oilers. They can still beat the Kings pretty handily in spite of having pretty shoddy goaltending. Where it just comes down to it for me is it's the special teams, and in 1-goal games, the Oilers are so ridiculously locked down. I don't think anyone is getting. I think at the very least, McDavid and Draisaitl have it in them to single-handedly carry however bad you think this Oilers roster is, and it's pretty good. However bad you think they are, to at least pass the Kings. We'll talk about it against the Blues, against the Knights, whatever happens there. But I definitely think they can at least muster one more performance like that, right?
They should be able to. I can't say why not, unless like these injuries are worse than being reported and those guys just don't have it in.
That's the thing.
You don't know whether that's true or not until it happens. But
yeah,
I do agree that like these two guys have shown in the playoffs that they can single-handedly beat a team in the first round.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I won't discount that, but I do think it goes 6 or 7.
Yeah, like I said last last episode with Peter. It's the only reason LA beats Edmonton is if McDavid and Draisaitl are actually injured, which could happen. Like that's something that could happen. It's Draisaitl re-aggravated, or maybe not re-aggravated, but got injured again. And yeah, it's kind of a little scary, but they're treating Mc. I think once they saw the original plan was to have McDavid play on this road trip, but I think once they saw Draisaitl kind of go down, and they basically all their games don't really mean anything except playoff seeding over teams in the East and maybe playoff seeding over the Blues, for home ice. The games literally don't mean anything. Like they could lose every game and they'd still be third in the Pacific, so it doesn't matter. Their standing won't change.
Yeah.
So enough about the Oilers and the Kings. Let's move on to the Habs, an interesting piece of this year's playoffs. I think it's pretty guaranteed they're going to make it at this point. Sorry, Peter, but
yeah,
the Habs are an interesting one for me.
I guess I'll take the floor on this a bit because that is my level of expertise. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to put it as guaranteed because like this is still a young, streaky team. Like they did lose 5 games in a row like 2 weeks ago, or a week and a half ago, really, and then turned around and won 5 straight and got themselves into the very good spot they're in now. But like, yeah, they're in a spot where as long as they go 500, they're almost definitely in. Like if they go 2-2-1 in the last 5 games, that gets them to 90 points, and that would mean the Islanders would have to go 6-0-0, and the Rangers and Red Wings would have to go 5-0-1 to catch them. Even though those teams would have the tiebreakers at that point, which is regulation wins. But yeah, they're in a good spot. I think I don't know how predictable this could have been, especially like when you saw where the team was at in like early December and like basically up until Laine came back and the Alex Carrier trade was made. But I think the most positive development, is that this isn't just like, crazy goaltending and, some random veterans going on a crazy heater to get into the playoffs. Like this is, your star number 1 center captain turning into a top 12 point producer in the league and number 2 since the Four Nations break. This is your rookie defenseman breaking NHL records. This is your young, in prime wingers having his best goal scoring season and going to get pretty close to 40, if not hitting it. This is your former number 1 pick winger kind of figuring it out in the second half of the season again and finding his role and being able to actually be a problem on the forecheck and start to pick up some points and generally be a positive player. Like this is Jaden Struble taking a step, and especially when Caden Gooley was out, being able to be like an actual like impact player in the top 4 and finding chemistry with teammates and not just being a guy that gets the most sheltered minutes ever and you pray in whatever Mike Matheson's 30 minutes he doesn't give up 2 goals. Like this isn't obviously Montembeault's been very good. Dobish is still a couple games, including last night against Nashville. They had no business winning that game, but Dobish made enough saves, and basically he's not the most technical goalie ever, but he fights his way into winning. It was like Artur Shilov in the playoffs last year.
Yeah,
like sometimes it just works. This is Brendan Gallagher scoring 20 goals. This is Patrick Laine scoring 20 goals in 47 games. You're getting the right contributions from the right players at the right time, but it's led by your young core and your young stars. And this is before the guy that probably will end up being the best of all of them, Ivan Demonov, comes over next year. So it's very positive. The coming into the season, the number one thing was, from management, was that they wanted to be in the mix in March, and they wanted to be playing meaningful games, deep into March, being in and around the playoff chase, not having to sell at the deadline and, just, tank it out and hope for another, top draft pick. They wanted to be in a spot where they could, feel like they've taken a step towards the playoffs this year. I don't know if anyone really expected them to make it. And if you said that they would make it with, Laine missing the first 2 months of the season, the defensive issues that they had, in October and November.
Yeah.
Having to trade Justin Barron for Alex Carey in midseason just to stabilize that. Kirby Doc missing a huge portion of the year again. Caden Gooley missing big portions of the year. Like, they haven't been ravaged by injuries like they have been in past seasons, and it hadn't mattered in past seasons because, like, they were going to be tanking anyway. But I think it's hard to find a team in a better spot than Montreal right now, like league wide in terms of this season and the next like 10.
Yeah, honestly, like how many teams feel that good about not only right now but for the future? Like I don't think you can find it anywhere except for maybe like Washington, like or
even
maybe
Washington's going to have to figure out their identity when Ovechkin goes.
Yeah, that's the issue.
I guess Ottawa's pretty close too, but they don't quite have like the Ottawa team you see is the Ottawa team you're gonna get pretty much. Mm-hmm. And like they're going to improve, obviously. Like they're not going to be a wild card team like peaking at that, but they don't have like a top 2 or 3 prospect pool in the league. Two top 20 picks this year, and an amazing cap situation.
Yeah, and it's in the era of the Senators have disappointed for like the past couple years. People crowning them the preseason champs and all that, and now they're in the playoffs now, but this is past schedule, and the Canadians have done something that really no team has done in a while, which is actually be on pace with their rebuild. Like, this is when they were supposed to start being good, and they've started being good. But like teams like Detroit, they still suck. Buffalo, don't even need to mention that. Philly, we'll see where that ends up. But like Chicago, Seattle, right? Like those teams are not going to be good. And Montreal has suddenly just instilling. I don't know how good they're going to do really in the playoffs if they even win a game. Like, but just giving your team that hope and that confidence that you've already made the playoffs, like how to get there. It's because it's such a journey for teams that have not been there. It's so ridiculously hard. Like year over year, you see like 2 or 3 teams fall out or teams go back in, and so often those teams are the same kind of teams that filter in and out, like the Minnesotas, the Islanders, guys like that who aren't exactly going anywhere. It's not common to see a leapfrog like a leap like this for a young team that actually ends up working out. So that's exciting to see.
Yeah.
To say it's not the same situation because Toronto when they did it were a little different. But in terms of what you're talking about being on pace with the rebuild, like when Toronto got Austin Matthews and immediately went from last in the NHL to the second wildcard spot, it's of a similar ilk to that in a way that, like the pieces fit, you go in, you still have some veterans left over with some level of experience. Like that Toronto team had, guys like JVR and Tyler Bozak and like Leo Komarov that were still around to, have some experience and, fill in when the kids were, slumping, and which happens with young teams. That's how it works. But yeah, it's so difficult in this league, especially like the way it is right now, to go from being so bad to actually competing like day in, day out, and like being able to be consistent with that. And like it hasn't been a perfect season. Like I talked about how bad it was at the start.
It was over at some points. Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
crazy.
Like even going to the Four Nations break, they were in an awful stretch. I can't remember the exact record, but like it was at a spot where they were going to sell at the deadline again, and it was like, okay, they're a little bit better, and they went on a run, but maybe it's just not that year. And then Nick Suzuki had a conversation with Kent Hughes. He said like don't trade our guys, like we still believe in this team, we can get back into it. They came out of Four Nations and won like a whole bunch in a row. Again, got themselves right back up into the playoff race again. They were the best team out of the Four Nations for a couple of weeks there. Then they lost 5 straight again, and luckily, with how bad the Eastern Conference wildcard push has been,
it didn't matter.
The teams are around them. Like Columbus has totally fallen off a cliff. Like the Islanders haven't taken chances. Detroit hasn't been consistent enough, and the Rangers are just been okay. And so they were able to stay right in there, and now you go on another 5-game winning streak, and you're as close as you can be at this point.
Yeah. And going into the playoffs, Peter, did you want to say something? You haven't talked in like 10 minutes. I think we kind of.
No. Like I was trying to wait for you to say that after, and then he said down. I'm like, okay, I'll go again.
He's just sitting there.
No. This isn't my area of expertise. Like what you guys are saying is like everything that I would have said. I really don't have anything more to add.
I see. Oh well.
Yeah.
Going into the playoffs, I will say their actual underlying numbers are bad.
They're awful. It
Their
doesn't matter.
Their goaltending is good. Goaltending is pretty good. But I think we can't underestimate the power of actually having your superstars show up. I'm not going to say that Washington's stars are not going to show up. I mean, it's Ovi. He's gonna do his thing. They got a very well spread out offense. They don't need one guy to produce. It's a bit different in that situation, but if that's Slavkovsky and Suzuki and Caulfield, if they can score at the pace they're going right now on this current run and carry that momentum into the playoffs, which I don't know if it can happen, but they could seriously, a team with nothing to lose and is really,
maybe
they're dangerous.
Seen crazier things happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously 2010 happened and Yaroslav Halak came in and it was Habs Capitals and President's Trophy winning Capitals against gritty 8th seed Canadiens. Like it's happened before, but I don't know. It's just I think you're right in the way that they've gotten to a point where you have a top line and a group of top guys that can win you games now. The next step is going to be how can you control shots and control the pace of the game down the lineup, because they don't quite do that the same. There's a lot of shifts where they're out there just one line goes out there. It's like, can you guys just survive? Or
yeah,
can you guys survive? Can you draw a penalty and can you get a line A power play goal? And then the first line comes out and scores, and all of a sudden you've got 2 goals off of that. You get a bit of momentum. Someone else scores and goaltending can batten down the hatches and you can close it a game. Like that has happened a lot of times this year. The next step will be finding the right pieces to kind of supplement the core and learning how to control games, control the underlying numbers, and I don't want to say find more consistent ways to win, because they've been really good at closing out wins this year. Part of that's goaltending, part of that is just you have guys who are legitimately good defenders like Caden Gooley and Alex Carrier, but yeah, that's the next step. That's stuff you look at next year, and that's how you become a consistent playoff team and a real contender, and not just look at this great story. This team made the playoffs and they're not supposed to. But
yeah. For Montreal. Oh man, we've probably been talking about this for 20 minutes. I don't know. Montreal really fascinates me, but for them in the playoffs, the only reason I could see them winning over Washington, and I could see it, just for hockey reasons. So much of being a great team in the playoffs comes down to what you can guarantee can consistently happen for your team every night. Like the Panthers last year, Bobrovsky is going to give you a chance. He's not going to be amazing every night, but he's going to give you a chance on a lot of hard shots. Barkov is going to be the best defensive player in the world. They're going to have Verhaeghe, Reinhardt, all those guys in the middle of the lineup who are going to get you consistently good chances and carry play. With the Oilers, McDavid and Draisaitl are going to get you a point and a half per game in every single series, no matter what. That Stuart Skinner is going to suck, but they have these certainties, right? With the Pittsburgh Penguins, you knew what Crosby was going to do. Teams that don't win do not have those things where you can consistently rely on it. Look at the Maple Leafs. You cannot rely, and you do not know what you're going to get with Matthews and Marner and Nylander in the playoffs. You don't know, and that's why they are so bad. With the Habs, I think they have those guarantees that goaltending is going to be solid, and their top guys are going to give it their all. They're going to have a consistent effort, and they can actually score. So I think that's something that favors them. Now, Washington, obviously, having said that, they do everything better than most teams, especially the Habs. But, I think that favors them.
I would say like Nick Suzuki had 7 goals and 16 points, led the team in the 2021 run. So he like Caulfield had 12 points and 4 or 5 goals that run too. So like these are guys that have proven their worth in the playoffs before. And I think that 2021 run, even though they didn't win, and even though it was seen as that was a swan song for Weber and Price more than it was an initiation for Suzuki and Caulfield. But that experience is so invaluable. Like just Suzuki basically kind of came out as like a legitimate like top 6 like center in those playoffs.
Yeah.
Like Caulfield became the Calder favorite after those playoffs, and like he had a rough start of the next year, but he's obviously he's figured it out now, and he's shown that he can score in the playoffs. Like, I think that's an advantage that they'll have going in. But I don't know, the Capitals are just too good, and they're going to control the game. They're gonna get equal if not better goaltending most likely, like in basically every game. They're gonna probably have better special teams. They're going to score more down the lineup at 5-on-5. They're going to be able to exploit weaknesses better. They're going to turn the puck over in good spots because Montreal does have guys that do tend to turn the puck over in bad spots sometimes, especially once you get like Patrick Laine is great at what he does and not great at what he doesn't do. He scored goals in the playoffs too for what it's worth.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think I'm not saying like. I would say it's like 5 games. Montreal takes one at the Bell Center. Like you rally behind the crowd. The top line scores a couple goals. Montembeault plays a blinder. You kill a couple penalties. Maybe like Gallagher scores a big goal or Anderson scores a big goal, and everyone goes home happy. You lose in 5 to the President's Trophy winners, and nobody's upset.
Yeah,
that seems like the most likely outcome.
Honestly, yeah. I think
you bring in.
I think even for me, the Demidov thing is the biggest thing. I would just
that's gonna be
whatever happens this year. You're gonna have probably one of the Calder contenders next year after Hudson probably wins it this year. So that's great for them.
Definitely wins it. Hudson is 100% winning it this year.
At this
no
point,
argument for anyone else anymore.
Nah, I don't.
I entertained Wolf and Celebrini a few weeks back.
They choked.
Yeah.
They choked, I guess, a little bit, but Hudson has been like probably the top 5 defenseman in the league since the Four Nations break, and I don't think I'm exaggerating.
Maybe you are.
No.
I think that goal against Urson, I think Samuel Urson single-handedly handed him the Calder. Single-handedly handed him the Calder there because that clip got shared so much, and it's...
Oh my god.
Yeah. I think for the Habs, if you can do, even if you get swept, if it's 4 1-goal games, I'd feel good about that. If you can win one of those 1-goal games, then it's like, okay, we're in business and this team is, I think we can do something. But yeah, I think it'll be important to win 1 at the Bell Center. And besides that, you can't really expect much. Mm-hmm. All right, moving on to the Rangers. Presuming
where I can talk a lot.
They don't go 5-0-1. They're going to be out after winning the President's Trophy last year.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here, and where did it all go wrong this year? I think we know the answer, but where did it all go wrong?
So I feel like it all went wrong. Well, I mean, like the start of the season where nothing, like literally just nothing felt like anything was working. Like I feel like from the start of it, it's always been a defense problem. Keandre Miller just fell off a cliff. He hasn't been a reliable top 4 guy that he was a couple of years ago. Ruba also just absolutely sucked. Like going into the season, Lindgren also fell off. Like all these guys that were at one point like someone you could get away with having on your top 4, they all just fell off tremendously except for Fox. Like going into the season, they really only had one top 4 level defenseman. And that showed. And it's also like the fact that they aren't that good. It's just that their play style too. I don't think there's a single aggressive defender on the New York Rangers, and it shows because they will just let the other team do whatever they want. Like they will just let the other team enter the zone, take shots till they could just get the puck and take it out. Like they don't actually do anything on defense. It's just such a passive defensive team mixed with the fact that the actual defenders just aren't good at all. And I feel like they've had a lot of opportunities to fix that over the years that they just hadn't. Like this season, I feel like they do have a chance with free agency coming up because I'm pretty sure Gavrikov is a free agent that they could get.
Mm.
I know Orlov hasn't been as good as he used to be, but I feel like he would still be a solid bet. But the issue is that Drury isn't gonna do that. Like the Rangers, like if I was controlling it, I would be focusing on just completely retooling the defense. I feel like the JT Miller trade, like as much as I hated it when it first happened, I feel like it's honestly set up the offense to be in a really good spot because now you're looking at a top six of Panarin, Trocheck, and now Gabriel Perreault's coming up.
Yeah.
And then the
That's
other line
money.
after that is going to be Lafreniere, Miller, and then you could just throw Cooley on there, and that's just a really good line too.
It's pretty
Like
good.
they just put Lafreniere and Miller together for the last couple of games, and they've looked really stellar. Like I feel like they set up the top six to be in a really good spot, and then depth wise, I mean Zibanejad and Kreider, if you those aren't guys you'd want on your top line like they were, but I feel like if you have them on the third line, which is where they're going to be for as long as they have their contracts now, I feel like that's still a good third line pair to have. I feel like offensively, like it's a good job. It's just that the team is set up so bad defensively, and Drury isn't going to do anything about it because he thinks that the top four pair that he locked up is going to be Braden Schneider and Will Borgen. And that just fucked, like the Will Borgen extension just fucked everything. It fucked everything. It fucked everything so bad because that could be a guy like Gavrikov or Orlov you could put in there, and that would be 500 times better. Will Borgen is a guy you throw on the bottom pair who's just like good. Him in a top four role, he just doesn't do anything. He's not. Oh my god, it actually gets me so angry because that would like, uh he's just not good. It's just not good enough. It's not good enough at all. And now they're gonna waltz in the next season with Carson Soucy, Will Borgen, Braden Schneider, Urho Vakanainen, and Adam Fox. Like it's so bad. It's so bad, and they're all staying till next season. The one other good defenseman that I've loved is Zach Jones. He doesn't play defense. He's like pretty much a fourth forward, except he's actually really good at it, and they don't even want to play him.
Oh my gosh.
And that's another thing. They don't want to play him because it's Peter Laviolette, and I'm so fucking over him. I was over him the moment they signed him, and then he did the fucking Gallant thing where he blue-balled me with an Eastern Conference final run, and then he just fucking sucked the season after. Like, it's so frustrating. Because at this point, when you've been through like 2 to 3 different coaches with this core, you start to ask yourself, like, what in the core has to change? But these 2 to 3 coaches have not been good at all. Gallant and Laviolette,
Yeah.
like, they aren't good coaches. Like, that's what's so confusing is like, if they would have taken a no block who was literally in their system, or if they would have taken a guy like Bruce, like these guys who aren't mediocre, don't have histories of mediocre offenses on 5v5, like we could have at least learned something on if the core is good enough or not. Like now you're kind of just sitting here wondering like, what the fuck is the problem? Because like Laviolette isn't really a good coach offensively, and that's been the oh my god, there's just so much wrong. There's just so much wrong. So much wrong.
Talk your talk.
What do you
Kenny.
do
got
if
it.
May 1st runs around and, you know, everyone's all excited because Peter Laviolette has been relieved of his duties as New York Rangers head coach, and then 3 days later, John Tortorella is hired.
He got 25 goals out of Scott Laughton.
Don't even joke, lad. Don't even joke, lad. That's what's gonna piss me off the most because like, even if they do fire Laviolette, they're just gonna go off the fucking coaching carousel again. Like
Yep.
they aren't gonna. I'm not moved that they're actually gonna sign somebody. Like no, this team would be in a much better spot if No Block was the coach. It'd be in so much better spot if No Block is the coach. I'm actually so annoyed that they didn't sign No Block.
That one made no sense to me. Yeah, like that. The good coach in your system, and no, he's an Oiler. I wouldn't have even let the Oilers talk to him.
Seriously,
But I guess it must have been some weird future considerations trade from the '90s that like stipulated we can, you know what I mean? But
you traded us your fourth line plug, so now we demand the rights to hire your aide.
I have this scrap of paper from your owner in the '80s. Respect it. But yeah, okay, you're right from the perspective of like it was just fundamentally built a little wrong, but the offense still Like
The
even
offense
though,
is looking really good.
yeah, it is looking really good long term as well as right now
Long
with some of
term.
the
Yeah,
vets. Like Cooley, where did that guy even come from? Fantasy
I
legend.
know.
Um,
That was a
World
really
Junior
big
legend.
surprise.
yeah, World Juniors legend. But I don't know. It just feels like a very simple fix with like bringing a good defenseman, but at the same time, it goes a lot more than just the roster construction this year. I feel like if your GM
Yeah.
basically goes out there and says, "Hey, we're gonna
Oh,
you
yeah,
guys
that's
you
a
guys
really
all
big
suck and we're gonna trade everyone," I don't want to play for you anymore. Um,
Yeah, yeah. So, and it's such a weird spot for Drury because I don't even know how much you could actually blame him considering the market he got hired into and the fact that why am I blanking on his name? Dolan. Like I feel like Dolan plays his hand in so much with what Drury does and the fact that he doesn't want to wait. Like since 2019, since they've drafted Kako, they've done nothing but try to accelerate and rush. Like ever
yeah,
since, and that's like the one thing that was really scary off the bat was that when they drafted Kako, they weren't at all focused on actually developing Kako. They were just focused on winning games, even though they weren't in a spot to do so.
hmm
And then the next year came around and it was the same thing. Like we're in a spot where we have to develop the guys so that they actually become top guys. And then they just tried to win games. Like they just accelerated everything. They tried way too hard to just rush it. And they've always been rushing it. And again, I feel like that's not a GM thing. I feel like that's just the fact that James Dolan knows the market he's in and he feels that whoever is the GM, he has to force him to actually contend even when they're nowhere near a spot to actually do so.
yeah. That's a good point. I definitely agree with that. It's just it's a poor philosophy that doesn't set up
Yeah.
anyone in there for success, right? So.
Mhm.
Moving on from the Rangers, unless Rory had more to say about the Rangers, I think I already shared a lot of it.
It's the same thing as Peter was saying with the Habs. Like, I don't have too much to say about the Rangers. I guess all I really have to say is like you almost wish that like Panarin fell into your hands like 2 years later.
Yeah,
Like you would have just had
Yeah.
time to give Lafreniere, Kako, even Fox would have fallen into your hands at that same time.
Mhm.
Give those young guys and like be able to grow that young core in a way that like you're not pushing to win in the first 5 years of like your superstar's mega contract. He falls into your hands like 2 years later. Like I'm not saying, like it's not the way the world works, so it's a tough hypothetical to even imagine.
yeah,
And like COVID happened too, and God
Yeah,
knows
that
what would have happened. But like it feels like the window would have been much more pronounced and it would have fit so much better if that would have happened. You would have had, it would have been more of an actual like contention window and a proper rebuild rather than let's hope the assembly of good talent we've put together this year works with the random old school
yeah.
style head coach we've
Yeah.
hired, like you were saying. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's
no.
all I really have to say.
I feel like they kind of just expected the good young talent to come rather than like they just expected it to happen. Like they did everything under the expectation that they think like they expected it that
mm,
it was going to happen. Like they expected that Capo Caco was going to be good at some point. They
yeah.
expected a lot of Lafreniere was going to be good at like they expected all these guys to be good at some point and just completely blew the development process aside and just focused on winning games. It was
hmm
yeah, not good.
On the topic of the Rangers, we're gonna move on to what team this is important. Which team had the most disappointing year? Now that it's kind of closed down and we know where most people are going to finish, inside or outside the
Yeah.
playoffs. There's a couple interesting picks here. I think there's one big one, but I've got a couple I want to talk about. Rory, I'll let you have it.
Yeah, like Nashville is clearly the big one here, and I don't think it's much of a debate on that. Like there are people who will argue, and I know in our pre-show meeting or whatever you want to call it, like Peter was saying that he saw a world where Nashville could have missed the playoffs, but even then, this is a team that's like 30th in the league, and like just it feels like everything that could have gone bad for Nashville this year kind of has. Even some of the trades they've made have kind of like blew up in their
Yeah.
face in some ways. Like like, I mean, it's not like Yusuf Parson went and did anything, and like Justin Barron hasn't been bad for them, but like Alex Carrier, like we were talking about
Could've
earlier,
used a guy
has
like
been a
that.
big part in Montreal's turnaround.
Yeah.
Like you see Saros going from perennial very good goalie to the absolute opposite of that right after he signs his extension is not only just bad but worrying, especially after you committed to him over Yaroslav Askarov.
Who looks pretty good.
I don't think you needed to hate on all three of Stamkos, Marchessault, and Shea with those big signings. Like they're not like obviously you want to. You don't give the guys money to expect one of them not to work, but all three of them have been underwhelming in some ways. You had maybe you should have seen major regression out of guys like Gustav Nyquist and Ryan O'Reilly from last year because they were kind of overperforming in some ways. Philip Forsberg has still had a good year, but
what can you
it
do?
hasn't really meant anything. Yeah, Roman Josi has missed a huge chunk of the season with injury, and I think that's kind of gone under the radar because Nashville's been so bad. He got injured when they were bad, so it just nobody thinks about them anymore. But like he's missed huge chunks of the season with injury. They're having an atrocious year PDO wise. Like their finishing has been horrible. Their goaltending, like I said, has been horrible. Everything just hasn't worked. It's one of those years where Trotz went big in the offseason. He saw a team last year that kind of went on a miracle run, honestly the same way that St. Louis this year is going. A big run that pushed them into a wild card spot. They really fought with the division winner in a first round series, but couldn't quite get that over the line, which was fine. And he went big, and it just hasn't worked in any way. And now they just look in a really bad spot. At least they didn't like trade a first round pick unprotected or whatever. That would have been a true disaster. But yeah, they're bad. Like they don't have proper center depth. Like it hasn't worked out in that way. On defense, Ryan McDonough was probably playing a bigger role and being a bigger piece than expected. And he's gone back to Tampa Bay and he's been excellent there. Yeah. He's had a really good year. Obviously I've talked about it a couple of times now, but Saros' downfall has been just awful for them.
Fabro and Columbus too.
Yeah, I didn't even think about Fabro. And like they traded Novak too, and like I think he's been injured in Pittsburgh a little bit, but like it felt like they had something last year and like a blueprint to add, and Trotz went out and added and put them into a win now kind of spot, and it just hasn't worked. And that's why they're pretty obviously like the most disappointing in my eyes. Even if like you could have poked holes in that lineup before the year, like you saw that like anyone with an able eye could see like, hey, Gustav Nyquist isn't going to do that again at this age. Hey, like that defense is really really thin. Hey, like Stamkos hasn't been a 5-on-5 contributor for years now, but man, they are just brutal. Nothing's gone right, and it's I don't know. Does it get better? I guess is the question.
I think it's literally not possible for it to not get better. Is the thing like just in terms of actual luck and like how bad Saros has been? There's just no way they aren't at least kind of in the wild card talks next year. I don't know how they haven't fired Brunette. I understand the stuff last year. He had a great.
At this point, you just wait until the end of the year. Like, there's no reason. I feel bad. I feel like Brunette's a really good coach. Like the way he talks about the game and like the way he kind of like puts in his offensive style is really interesting to read and really interesting to follow. And it's worked last year. It worked in the regular season in Florida when he was the interim there. I think he's. I was kind of hoping he'd found his spot and he could kind of lead this team and that was not put together in a traditional way into being the next, maybe not the next Florida or Vegas so that they go and win a cup, but in a way that they'd become like a legitimate top team in the league, and they'd be fun to watch, and they'd be a team like you take a look at on any random night and say I want to watch Nashville play because they're fun, they attack, they score a bunch of goals, and they're a good team. And instead, I can't remember the last time I watched a Nashville game that didn't involve, like, obviously I watched, like, doesn't involve the Habs, so I would have watched them last night.
True.
They're just they're so dead. Even, like, even out of the teams at the bottom, like, I'll watch Chicago and San Jose more because at least they have
you got Bedard
and whatever. Like they have guys that are worth watching, and like they're bad, but they're bad in a way that they meant to be bad. Just
True.
Nashville's just dreary, man. The only silver linings is they've got a couple of guys like Matthew Wood and Luke Evangelista. Like Wood made his NHL debut last night, I should say.
Yeah.
Like Spencer Stasny's kind of come in. Like they have a couple of young guys that it's like, hey, like maybe you can be something in the league. Fedor Svechkov is another one.
He's been good,
but
not offensive.
But he's been a guy that sticks in the NHL. But yeah, they're just dreary. They've definitely been the toughest watch in the league all year.
Ooh. It'll be an interesting, not an off season, because I don't think they're really going to do anything. They're just going to stand pat, and we'll see what happens next year.
But I don't know if I agree with that. Barry Trotz
really
does not seem like the guy that wants to sit around and do nothing in an off season. He's had 2 off seasons.
Well, I mean, he'll
he's
do
done
something.
Crazy things both times.
But they're not going to just suddenly sell Stamkos and Marchessault.
Oh no, well he said they're
not pivoting that fast.
I don't think they'll pivot away from their core, but I think they'll try and get creative in ways that they can add like young pieces to the roster. Like they've got a lot of draft picks and a lot of like prospect capital, like more than you would think for a team that's in a win now mode in the way that they were.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't.
What gets interesting is if they're bad next year, then massive sell off because they have a very old core.
Then you just tank and rebuild, and
like we're talking about a Philip Forsberg trade here.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Or a UC Saros.
If they're bad again, like you just take whoever your top 5 pick is this year, whether they end up like stay in third and draft Martone, for example. Like you build around that guy, you build around whoever you get next year, and you try and have a third really big, top end pick, and then you build out of that with the already accumulation of other assets you have. Maybe you keep a Yossi around and like a Stamkos because no one's gonna take Stamkos at this point. And you just kind of try and have some fun that way, but I don't know. I can't imagine they're this bad again next year, though. I think I agree.
Peter,
just on the balance of
who do you think is the most disappointing?
I mean, I do agree that Nashville was the right answer, though, just to like create some sort of discussion. Me personally, in terms of disappointment, I did not think the Flyers would be this bad. Like I was like really, I was honestly really excited to see the Flyers this season. I thought they could have like made some type of wild card pushes because I feel like their team last season was worse. And I mean, offensively, I was really excited to see what Michkov would have done to elevate them. Like, yeah, their goaltending was really bad, which is why I didn't really see them like being necessarily good. But I did not think they would be this bad last in the Metropolitan at all.
I don't know. I kind of had them around the like just under 80 points at the end of the year, which is like they're probably tracking for about 75, 76 right now. Yeah. So I can see that, but I don't know. I feel like it was pretty obvious that last year was a complete fluke and they were going to be worse. I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of saw as the Torts clock ran out.
Yeah, that
was going to run out. The goaltending was atrocious.
Yeah, the goaltending.
Michkov would be fun, but maybe not as like a team saver at this point. That's kind of what I saw. I know what you mean, but maybe I just wasn't as high on them. I'm the same as Xavier.
They were disappointing, definitely below expectation, but sure. Not really in that echelon.
Not as bad as no.
I'd say.
What was your answer? You've been hyping this up.
I would say my pick is Detroit, and I'm surprised that nobody mentioned this.
Detroit. I wasn't high on them.
I wasn't high on them either.
I wasn't ridiculously high on them, but just the way that they ended up missing the playoffs is so insanely disappointing. Like they were tracking to legitimately be a threat, even before like they fired the coach and had all that. Which, by the way, they had that stretch where they were awful, and man. How does this consistently happen where they have these terrible just streaks? And like if they don't have those, they're not only in the playoffs, they're probably where like the Senators are or where the Panthers are, like probably battling for third in the Atlantic. If you just imagine out of those like 10 game losing streaks they had, they won a couple games. Just for example. And one little pick here, I wouldn't say they're the most disappointing because people were kind of cheering on their downfall, is the Bruins. I don't think anyone thought they'd be this
I
bad.
didn't think
Oh
because the Bruins are
no.
never that bad.
No.
I
Yeah.
think I went the past like 2 or 3 seasons saying how this is gonna be finally the year
Yeah.
where the Bruins fall off, and they never did.
Finally
so I
give
always
up on
just
it.
have them top 3. I never give up on them
Yeah.
anymore, and then they just
The
finally
one
ran
year,
out.
it's
It
I mean,
really fell apart.
I think that the other thing with Boston is that I think like optically they haven't been as bad this year as their record like shows right now. Like they weren't a playoff team for most of the year, but they were like kind of in that kind of mix until the deadline, and then they sold Marchand and everyone else, and now they're running like Henry Yoki-Haru on the top pair
Ooh.
and Mason Low-Rise up -5 every game.
Ooh.
Um, I don't think they're quite as bad as their record shows. I think they've just like really optimized a way to just be really bad really fast.
Yeah.
Obviously, like it didn't work for them. Like Lindholm and Zadorov's contracts look horrible, and I think that's actually going to set them back. But the second they fired Montgomery, I mean, it was one of those like, oh, they're not going to make the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Like who before this year would have said that Philadelphia and Buffalo are ahead of the Bruins? Like that's
really fucking crazy.
that's
Yeah.
insane.
That's insane. Yeah.
And the Ducks.
Yeah. The Ducks.
Just a crazy thing to think about.
Even like Seattle being ahead of them. I don't know how good you guys thought Seattle would be, but I mean,
Nah, I was never.
I figured they'd be pretty bad. One more sleeper pick,
Yeah.
actually, besides the Canucks. I feel like everyone's talked about them so much, but
I didn't think they'd miss the playoffs.
I don't think anyone thought they'd miss the playoffs. I will.
Yeah.
They're not
the Rangers
my
were the same way, too.
my most disappointing team, just because of the way it happened. It's kind of a
Yeah.
lot of off ice stuff. Not the roster genuinely just gave out and sucked. I mean, that was part of it. Obviously, Pedersen
Yeah.
had his struggles, but it's a lot of like injury and just Miller completely blew up the room for some reason. But I think most people would probably say that's their answer as well, the Canucks.
Yeah.
But it's
yeah, I see they were disappointing in a way that like they should have been better and just it didn't work. Like not in a Nashville way where like like every single player you could have hoped be good was like bad. Like obviously Pedersen wasn't great, but like I feel like Vancouver's had good players. They've just had injuries and off ice stuff, and it just it never came together. And then all of a sudden St. Louis goes on a run, and you kind of lose your spot a little bit. I'll put in one more shout, and maybe this is disappointing in a different way, but I do want to say Chicago, just in the way that nothing has developed there really.
Yeah,
and
Bedard has.
Bedard has struggled a lot, and like Frank Nazar has been okay this year. Like they brought up Lev Shanov, and they brought in Rinzel and Oliver Moore and stuff like that. So it feels a little bit better right now. But like I feel like coming into this season, the goals for Chicago weren't even to get out of the basement, but it was to make sure Bedard has as good of a year as possible, and make sure your other guys like your Nazars and whatever other young guys like end up making the team like play well and like feel good about themselves. And Lucas Reichel too. I'll forget to mention this because he's been so bad. Like, just the vibes of Chicago haven't been good. It doesn't feel like they progressed this year. It feels like a lost season. Even the past couple of years, like the season they got Bedard, it was a one season because you got Bedard. Like you got your golden goose right there. Congrats.
Mm-hmm.
Like the tank was worth it. Then his rookie year, Bedard has a good season, wins the Calder. And you get the number 2 overall pick, and it feels like a good season. Now, like, they suck. Some of their prospects have come along all right. Bedard hasn't blossomed into a superstardom yet, and it just kind of feels. It feels like they're already a year behind where they hoped.
Yeah, it feels like a lost year.
Yeah.
All right, I think that does it. Just about. We've been going for an hour and 10, so. Yeah, definitely. We definitely wouldn't even have time for a question segment. If you idiots asked good questions.
That Ovechkin segment went on for like a lot longer than I
We
thought.
got like 50
I
questions.
5 minutes, and it was like
none
20.
of them were good. 50 questions. They were all terrible. But yeah, we'll see you guys later. That was episode 27. Thank you to Rory. Thank you to Peter. It was a great episode. See you guys all next time. Say goodbye.
Bye-bye.